All right. Moving on to this week, we play Arkansas. Of course, everybody will remember that Ole Miss threw 6 interceptions in that game, and they kind of didn't rely on the run early on and kind of forced the passing game. And they're good against the pass. Now, like they're second in the nation right now in pass defense, but Georgia just played bully ball, much like Alabama did against us Saturday. How do you see this game playing out? I'm expecting a good performance by Matt, but I mean, how do you see it?
I see it as we've got to establish the run, period. I mean, that's where our RPO system begins. It's the heart of our ball is is creating that run. Um, if you don't have Drummond to be able to keep those backers out of the box because they're afraid of the quick RPO, it's going to be difficult. So um, after watching our offensive line get manhandled by Alabama, um, I'm concerned. So the old saying, what's the most dangerous animal in the forest?
What's that?
A wounded one, because you
Yeah.
don't know how they're going to react.
Yeah.
And so that's what And so you've got two wounded animals right now that
Mm.
are just like you know that are they realize that if who this is a huge game because you lose this game, and that's two SEC games in a row that you've lost. For us, it's even bigger because it's two West teams. But I think that um, if we can establish the run, that's what's going to determine how we are going to play the rest of the game. We will do great offensively if we can establish the run, and I don't know what Ely looks like. He didn't seem to play as much as I thought he was going to play against Alabama. I don't know if he's dinged up or if he's a little bit in the doghouse. I don't know, but a lot of it's gonna be dictated on how we establish our run.
Yeah. And did you see much three deep, five across zone, little eight drop eight when you play?
Not really. It was mostly your cover two, your cover three, your four, your you could play a reverse four where you would have two, two to the short side, uh, like cover three to the wide side. You get some of those, but you didn't have like a cloud defense so much. More like your constant prevent. So it's something that we haven't that I didn't see a whole bunch.
Yeah, I imagine in this game, this is going to sound really weird, but I imagine that Kiffin is going to take some shots in this game because one of the weaknesses of this defense, believe it or not, is four verticals because we can outnumber the defensive backs. And if they're going to get into it, they're probably going to take two or three shots during this game.
Well, and I think that's something that we really need to try to do more. Unfortunately, Sanders dropped a ball that would have been a touchdown to against Alabama. Um, I think that we haven't really taken a lot of deep shots. We haven't really pressed that. And it's because defenses are dropping so far. But that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to take away that deep ball, and that's why you have to be able to establish the run to keep those safety to try to bring those safeties down. And so if that's not going to be the case, if teams are going to give you a cloud coverage and play prevent, then you're going to have to run dig routes. You're going to have to run, which are run a post corner. Do things that are that attack the deep, but then attack the middle of the field. I think that's you're where they're probably most vulnerable. If you're going to drop four and you've got a back that can flare out or something to kind of bring a backer, that's going to create your holes in the middle of the field.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking forward with this defense, especially with as much trouble as we had last year, how it would actually look whenever we move forward with a year to prepare. Much like Nick Saban with a year to
Yeah.
prepare for offense, how that looked. I think this could look pretty different offensively. And like you said, though, it's a wounded animal on defense. we're a wounded animal. Who knows how Saturday is going to turn out? I just know that I'm glad we're home.
Yeah, no, 100%. We definitely need to be home. And I do think this is a really good opportunity for Levy and his um, credibility, or not credibility, but his brand. Like you said, Saban had a year to adjust. Now, what's Levy going to do? He's had a year to adjust, and now you're going to see what they do. Are you going to come back and do the same thing and just say, hey, this is my playbook and we're going to beat you at it, or are we going to try to do some things differently? Again, I was really shocked about Alabama that we did not do anything differently. Um, I was really disappointed in that, and it shocked me. Um, and so I don't know what else different that they're going to do. Again, to me, 100% of it is going to be about establishing that line of scrimmage in that run. And Arkansas is big boys, and they're some big boys. And I don't think that's really what we want to do. Is say, listen, our our offense is going to be predicated on establishing that run because they're big boys up front. But it's something that the mindset this week is going to have to be, listen, you're going to have to establish that run. It's going to be all up front. If you can't establish that run, then they're going to come back. They're going to tee off on us. They're going to drop eight. They're going to get pressure. And if you can't make runs up the middle or create good runs, then it's going to be a long day, just like it was last year.
Yeah, and I have a question. Whenever they drop back in their drop eight, and one of their rules, obviously, for the middle linebackers, when the quarterback breaks contain, the middle linebacker goes. He doesn't hesitate, worrying about his zone. He just vacates his zone and chases the quarterback because the quarterback obviously has rules: don't throw back across the middle of the field.
Right.
But the voided zone that they're doing to get advantage is in the middle of the field. Do you
Yes.
think you think I don't know when looking at their
Again,
defense, it's kind of counterintuitive, but
if I could, I think I said a couple weeks ago, if I could choose between two tight ends or two amazing outside wide receivers, I'm going with the two amazing tight ends. Why? Because those two amazing tight ends can get up the field. They can go out corners. They can go out, do sidelines. They can press the outside, but that inside, that is where you're able to keep safeties at bay. You can attack the middle of the field, and when you're doing that, you're forcing backers to stay inside. You're forcing safeties to stay within the hashes. You're forcing them to do that. With that being said, then you can take your outside receivers with Sanders and take him vertical, or take him at your 18-yard comebacks. So we have to take advantage of the middle of the field. The problem is that if you get blitzed and you can't pick it up, and you get pressure, and you're dropping eight, and you can't get the ball out, then that's when you make mistakes. One of the things that I was most pleased with against Alabama, even though it was a loss, was Matt Corral. So Matt Corral did not panic. He didn't try to do too much. He took what the defense gave him. He didn't throw picks. And last year against Arkansas, you panic, you're not sure what you're going to do, and you try to do too much. That's not what he did yesterday on Saturday. And so that does give me hope, and it does give me confidence that if he does break down outside the pocket, if we do need to get out there, that he will take what the defense gives him. And you look at Bo Nix, that's where he made all of his money on Saturday was getting outside the pocket and having to emphasize and improvise. And I'm just hoping that we're able to somehow take a hold of the middle of the field and establish some runs.
okay, yeah. It seems like the consensus in this video is establish the run for our RPO
Yeah.
game and hit tight ends and work the middle of the field.
I mean, if you're looking at it, so again, remember I told you I was afraid that when we play the SEC teams, that your linebackers are athletic enough and rangy enough to pick off some of these RPO passes.
Hmm.
So if you, against Alabama, we never could establish that run. So when you don't establish that run, then how are you getting those backers to play the RPO game? They're not. They're staying where they were. They're that middle of the field's not there.
I didn't even
So
think about that.
so establishing that run keeps those backers having to come up, having to play. So it keeps them. So that's why the RPO is so effective when you have a run game. I mean, if you it means nothing, Stephen, if you cannot run. It
Hmm.
just throw it out the window because it's all predicated on keeping that backer, and when that backer makes one step, you hit it. And that was a little bit of my concern was if you can get that backer to make a step, but that's because you're creating the run game. And I, that's what I'm hoping is that we can establish the run game. And Mingo, without the absence of Mingo, it I think some of the backers just weren't so afraid of getting wide. They were able to stay where Coach Saban wanted them to be.
Yeah, and also I think we need to look and see if one of the, like Braylon Brown is see if he's injured or not because he might be a position if Jonathan Mingo's a long term guy. I mentioned Dontario Drummond earlier, but this is an option as well. Brandon Buckhalter's an option, but I think Jaden Jackson and Danis Jackson are going to get the first opportunity. And Jaden Jackson caught 4 balls. Danis Jackson had a great one by the goal line. You saw a little bit of flashing, but I'm a little bit concerned about having a burner and Braylon Sanders on one side and a burner on the other with like Danis Jackson or Jaden Jackson. I do think we need a little bit of a physical guy on the outside.
If you can get 2 speed guys on the outside, just 2 burners on the outside,
Mm-hmm.
and you have good size or you have good inside out, you get in between the zones. I mean, look, when you look at your slot receivers, what you're looking for is somebody that can find that naturally understands how to get open in those spaces. So, I think Drummond, again, being able to have a little bit of you establish the run, it opens up everything because the backers, if you look where Drummond's catching most of his balls is over the middle of the field, where the void is of the backers. So, I mean, I'm all about speed on the outside. That's what I like. I love speed on the outside. Your inside guy needs to be somebody that just knows how to naturally get open. It doesn't. You can have Wes Welker or you can have an AJ Brown. Either way, all you're wanting is to have somebody that naturally can get open. That's all you're looking for. And Drummond's so big that when he catches the ball, he causes such a problem because of his size. That's just like AJ Brown. When he catches it, those backers are just going, "Are you kidding me? I gotta hit this guy." So from a getting in and out and being a productive, all you're really wanting is to get those guys back, get that speed going on the outside, utilize people that understand how to get in and out of breaks, how to utilize get behind the backers. And I'm just kind of a little bit, I would love to understand Plumlee. I know he's new to this. Are these other receivers that much more advanced than he is? I do remember, and this is coming to the back of my head, one of the games, I'm not sure which one it was, but he flat out missed a blitz read, and they, Corral threw him the ball, and he wasn't even looking,
Yeah.
and and I wonder a little bit about that. You would think the quarterback position, moving out the receiver would actually be a little bit of an easier, or on that. But I mean, I love his athleticism. I mean, to me, he is a perfect slot guy. He's somebody that could really be utilized. but I'm not sure what's going on in that. And I do think that if we don't have Mingo, it does cause a little bit more of a thought, for the defense going, okay, well, what can this? I mean, you're going to have to take into account that this guy's a quarterback. What can he do? I don't know. To me, it's an opportunity that I don't know if we're not using.
Would you would consider moving Drummond to essentially the tight end role full time, and
Not tight end.
then use one of the little guys, the slot guys on the other side?
I would love. I mean, I would like to see Drummond. I mean, is Drummond playing more outside or inside?
Inside. He plays in the slot,
Yeah,
but he also plays
exactly.
tight end. Yeah.
Right. So I would like to see. No, I think Drummond. I would like to see Drummond playing more, bringing him in more. Now, I'll tell you this: the son of a great coach, Saban, he is going to make. He is going to make the corrections that he needs to make. Can Levy and Kiffin say, all right, you know what? We need to design or we need to tweak some of our plays to where Drummond's in a more of a flex position. Instead of him being out at a true slot position, we're going to line him up maybe 5 yards outside the tackle versus 10 yards outside the tackle. And what that would do is that would kind of give him the ability to play that slot position, but also be more of a tight end. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so,
You can do. You're talking about a little bit more 10 personnel, basically.
it's like a hybrid. It's like a hybrid approach to going. Okay, what are you going to do? Are you going to treat him like a receiver? Or are you going to treat him like a tight end? And you give him the ability to come in and block easier. You also give him an ability to get in there and make more of the middle of the field. I'm not sure because I didn't come from the RPO offense. I don't know how that affects the RPO reads. It obviously would make it much more difficult because you're so much closer in. Being out where he originally is. But I'll tell you this: if they don't establish the run, and Alabama kicked our butt, and I mean, I don't see Georgia. I mean, I don't see Arkansas, inferior to the defensive line of Alabama. I mean, look at Florida. Florida ran all over Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is going to be a huge test. And if they do not establish the run against Arkansas, they're going to need to do something that's going to say, okay, if we can't establish the run, we're going to have to establish the run by establishing the pass first, and that is by bringing in Drummond, bringing in because he is the guy that you want to have the ball in his hands. This year, that's been the guy. And so your best friend as a quarterback is your tight end. It's just, that's the guy you want, because it's the middle of the field. It makes it easier. And it keeps everything in. So it will be interesting to see how they do it. And, again, I try to keep things pretty simple. 14 points against Alabama. Whoever goes up 14 points wins the game. All right. Whoever establishes the ground game against Arkansas Ole Miss is going to win the game. So Arkansas only had like 66. What was it? I think like 66 yards of. What was it? No. Their leading rusher had 28 yards. Jefferson had only 65 yards passing. I mean, they absolutely got demolished. I mean, they're either going to come out so mad or so embarrassed, one or the other. And the way that they have been playing this year, I don't see it's embarrassed. I see it's them mad, and I see that their coach is an offensive line coach, and that's the blue collar guy that's saying, listen, you're going to have to play within your emotions. Don't get outside your emotions. And I'm saying this for us as well. You cannot play with a sense of like, okay, do or die, but you have to play with your mind and head, intact, and you've got to play your fundamentals. And if they come out and say, "Listen, we're going to win this line of scrimmage," uh, that's the main focus, and they come out and do that, it's going to be extremely hard for us to play. So this is a kind of a draw the line in the sand and say who's more of a man, who's more of the team that's blue collar that can play in the trenches. Because at the end of the day, that's exactly where we're going to win or we're going to lose.
Yeah, and also with Arkansas, do not let them be a front runner. If they get ahead of you, they can play with the lead pretty well. But they have trouble playing from behind because they're not a polished passing team, we'll put it like that. But they will run the ball like an old wishbone team back in the day. This is basically the spread equivalent of that.
They're going to run the ball. I mean, Jefferson is a big boy. I mean, that he is a reincarnate of Cam Newton, but not as good a thrower.
Yeah.
And he's just going to pound you. Now, I know he's been banged up. I know he was banged up against Arkansas and against Georgia. And I, hope for our sake that he's still a little banged up. One of the questions I've got is, how is Williams on our side? I think he hurt his knee a little bit. Did he come back? Is he? What's he like for Saturday? You have any idea?
I have not heard at this point, and we're not going to hear about injuries. Thank goodness with this staff, because that generally just doesn't leak out. But I don't think it's anything season ending. But he's got 5 sacks at this point, and he's performed pretty well. He got to Bryce Young, I think, a couple of times.
Yeah, but I knew he went down. I didn't know if he'd come back that much. I wasn't sure. I didn't see him as much as I thought.
Much like Jonathan Mingo, it will be Saturday morning before we find out, probably, or Friday night it'll leak out, just based off of people looking at the hotel.
Yeah, well, and when you look at a team like Ole Miss, when you don't have 2 deep 5 stars, when you lose a guy like him, it's hard, And when you lose a guy like Mingo, you asked me the question last week. Were you surprised when Mingo stepped up? I said no, because you just have players that are really good, that when the number's called for that game, they step up. Now, when you lose a guy like that and you bring somebody up, you expect them to step up, and they just didn't. And part of that is because you couldn't establish the run. And so I gotta give a little slack to those guys.
Yeah, and part of that also is because your opponent you were playing. There's not many teams that can do what they did.
No, but the year before, you absolutely manhandled them, and so it just doesn't make sense. You're just trying to figure that out. I mean, when you look at what we did against Alabama last year, you say, well, what wasn't there? What wasn't there? No, we played at Tuscaloosa. We played at home. We that wasn't that big of a difference. That doesn't we established the line of scrimmage. We beat them up physically, and so you're thinking, okay, well, what went wrong? And so against Arkansas, I hope they show up. I hope our offensive line says, you know what, this is a wake-up call. We got embarrassed this year, and if you said, hey, Bill, would you rather beat Alabama and lose 3 or 4 SEC games moving forward? Or lose against Alabama, be embarrassed in the trenches, have that wake-up call for your offensive line to say you're not as good as you thought you were, and you better get your act straight and go on and win out through the SEC run, because you understand what it takes to be that blue-collar team. Just because you're an RPO team doesn't mean you're not a blue-collar team. Heck yeah. So I think this is a huge wake-up call for our offensive line. A huge call for our team to understand that you're in the SEC and you better establish that run.
Yes, that's Bill Flowers, everybody, talking ball. Thank you very much for joining us today. We'll do it again next week, post Arkansas and before Tennessee. Is that Tennessee game kind of a special game in your household?
My dad said early on, I'm a fan of where my kids play.
Okay.
So, he always liked Tennessee, but he was never one of those guys that was just like, a fanatic fan. When I went, it's interesting when I was getting recruited. I had, at the time it was FSU, Oklahoma, Ole Miss, Auburn, and um, you know, I didn't grow up loving Tennessee, and so when they didn't offer me, it didn't break my heart, so uh, my dad he keeps up with Tennessee. He watches them. He pulls for them. But if it comes down between Ole Miss and Tennessee, and where I'm in the house, it's not one of those. Hey, Dad, you're not my friend today. We'll talk tomorrow. It's not like that.
Yeah, okay. Ole Miss and Arkansas Saturday at 11 on ESPN. Thank you, Bill, for joining us. We'll catch up next week.
Thanks, Steven.
All right, bud.
Hi, Toddy.